See, today, yes, we are having a lecture delivered by Professor Manamadu. Before that, I think, say, I like to mention that as National Trust, we are deeply saddened about the death of Professor Gananath Ubesekara. He was an eminent scholar, researcher, teacher, author, and a good friend. Professor Ubesekara was a well-reputed giant in the field of anthropology. I consider it actually most, if you look at the work that he has done, is more cultural anthropology. And delivered 78th lecture, National Trust lecture here. Our deepest condolences to his family, especially to his wife, Professor Rajini Ubesekara. We thought, it's our duty to see that, he was so helpful for us and also done a lot of research. He passed at the age of 94. He has done superb publications and also a series of lectures. And I think had many excellent students on the subject of anthropology. Thank you. Then, about today's lecture, Emeritus Professor Savitha Manawadu currently serves as the Professor of Architecture at the University of Murutua and Senior Professor of Architecture at the Joint Sir John Kotalawala Defence University. He is a Fellow of the Sri Lanka Institute of Architects, a member of the ICOMOS International Scientific Committee on cultural itineraries, the Architectural Institute of Japan, and the Royal Institute of British Architects. He was awarded the UNESCO Asia Pacific Merit Award for the conservation of private houses in Galle Fort. Professor Manawadu.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, at the outset, I wish to thank the President and the trustees of National Trust for inviting me to deliver this lecture. And at the same time, I wish to convey my heartfelt condolences to the families of Professor Gananath Ubesekara, because one of his articles inspired me to quest for the lost capital city of Vidya Bandara in Kurunayagara. So one of the articles written by him inspired me in search of the city, and I was able to discover that city and presented several papers on that city. And then my presentation today is about the conservation of private houses and dungeons. I have selected these two topics together because one of them is the conservation based on the social conservation aspects, that is, incorporating the inputs from the society, the communities, and then the other one is purely the passive mode of conservation, which is based on the Venice Charter. The other one, the houses were conserved based on the ICOMOS Charter called Charter for Conservation of the Townships. It is known by the name of Washington Charter. I will briefly introduce the charter when I am present in the paper. So, So this is the first one. I used the ICOMOS Charter for Preservation of Historic Urban Heritage, the ICOMOS International Charter for the Conservation and Restoration of Historic Sites and Monuments Venice Charter. All three charters were simultaneously used in this conservation project. The second charter was the Charter for the Conservation of Historic Towns and Urban Areas, which is known by the name Washington Charter of 1987. The second charter was initiated to overcome the shortcomings of the Venice Charter, which was enacted in 1964. And then at the same time, I used the third charter, which is called the ICOMOS Charter on the Principles for Analysis, Conservation and Structural Restoration of Architectural Heritage, the charter of the 2003. The readings of this, the contents of these three charters were used in conservation of private houses in the Fort of Galle. Basically, the most important charter out of the three in this particular conservation, based on the social conservation aspect, is the Washington Charter. If you go by the preambles, it says all urban communities gradually developed or deliberately created as expressions of the diversity of societies. And then the charter concerns historic urban areas, large or small, including cities, towns and historic centers or quarters, together with their natural and man-made environments. And then the other aspect of the charter is these areas embody the values of traditional urban cultures, and today such areas are threatened, physically degraded, damaged and destroyed by the impact of the urban development and industrialization. This situation leads to irreversible cultural, social and even economic losses, and ICOMOS drew up the Charter for Washington, the charter called the Washington Charter. And there are several methods and instruments embodied in this particular charter. The first one of them is the multidisciplinary studies before conservation planning of historic towns and urban areas. We had to do multidisciplinary investigations in fulfilling these requirements. So that must address factors such as archaeology, history, architecture, techniques, sociology and economic, etc. So before the investigations, we had conducted several surveys. We based on the survey conducted by the Department of Archaeology in 1983, Historical Survey of the Galle Fort. Then we ourselves helped ICMOS Sri Lanka in 2001. Actually, we means the University of Moratuwa. We helped the ICMOS Sri Lanka in 2001 in a survey. That data also was used, and then we carried out a special survey in 2007, and that also were used. The mixture of all these three surveys were used in preparing the conservation plan for the private houses. The principal objectives and legal, administrative and financial measures necessary to attain them must be clearly stated. So we discussed our plans in the Galle Planning Committee, Galle Heritage Planning Committee, which was participated by stakeholders from various sectors, including the administrators, legal segments, and then the naval officers, archaeologists, architects, and many people. So the very wide group of stakeholders. Ensure a harmonious relationship between the historic urban areas and the town, and that was one of our intentions. Conservation plans should be determined with buildings to preserve, preserve under certain circumstances, building to be removed. So the three different categories of buildings are identified, and then prepared the conservation plan. Existing conditions of the area should be thoroughly documented. We prepared a conditional report for the entire historic fort, and mainly The outcome will be discussed later on. Conservation plan should be supported by the residents of the historic area. So when we prepared the conservation plan at the outset, there were a lot of resistance from the communities. And I had to conduct several sessions, several meetings, several seminars, using various PowerPoint presentations and all. Ultimately, we were able to convince only one person in the whole community. And we started preserving his house. I will show you the house later on. And after finishing that house, there were a lot of requests, and ultimately we had to curtail at 60 houses because our funding was very limited. We were funded by the Netherlands cultural grants for the Sri Lankan government. Part of that grant was allocated for this purpose, and there was a limited funding. Therefore, we had to curtail the request of the others, and after completing our sessions, we started it in 2007 and completed in 2009. After completing, there were requests from foreigners who bought the properties. The land value has boosted up unprecedentedly, tremendously boosted up the land prices. And I know some of the occupants who were trying to sell their properties, less than 5 million, were able to sell their properties at the cost of 50 million to foreigners. And then the foreigners, one foreigner, in one case, he sold his property to 70 million later on. So started with 5 million and boosted up to 17 million within 3 or 4 years. So, and at the beginning it was a resistance, now it has become a trend. I am very happy because now it has become the trend of the Fort of Galle. And then the other methods and instruments, the new functions and activities should be compatible with the character of the historic town and urban areas that is predicted in, that is the indication in the Washington Charter. So the adaptation of these areas to contemporary life requires the careful installation and improvement of public services and facilities, which has not been implemented right now because there are a lot of criticism on the plans, because now the occupants are waiting for various kinds of development under restrictions. Good example is very many people wanted to have their own swimming pool and all in the premises, in the properties, within the properties, but it is restricted and it is controlled by the regulations now. And I wish to bring to your kind notice, when we were preparing these conserving these houses, there were no gazetted regulations by the government or the UDA. And we had to work on self-imposed regulations. And ultimately, in 2009, after completing our project, they declared, they gazetted the regulations, except very few. Almost all the regulations that we adhered by ourselves were coming under these new regulations. So it is known by the Galle Area Special Plan and Regulation under the UDA, under subclause number 70. When it is necessary, it construct new buildings or adapt existing ones. The existing spatial layout should be respected, especially in terms of scale and lot sizes, that is for the new developments, and if there are new developments. Introduction of contemporary elements in harmony with the surroundings should not be discouraged, since such features can contribute to the enrichment of the area that is given in the Washington Charter, but it is restricted under the regulations of the Galle Fort, right? Because some of the requirement for improving the area, improving the settings, are restricted by the regulations of the UDA. New functions and activities should be compatible with the character of the historic town and urban areas. So adaptation of these areas to contemporary life requires careful installation of improvement of public services facilities within the house and the living areas, as depicted in the Washington Charter, but it again is not fully pledged by the regulations. Knowledge of the history of the historic town and or urban area should be expanded through archaeological investigations and appropriate preservation of archaeological findings. We adhere to this regulation of this requirement of the Washington Charter. We got the help from the University of Rouen and Sri Javadanapura during our investigations of cultural properties. Traffic inside the historic town or urban areas must be controlled and parking areas must be planned so that they do not damage the historic fabric or its environment as depicted in the charter. But Galle Fort, of course, there are no provisions for parking at all other than few open spaces available now. When a major motorways are laying, we didn't have this problem because there were no major roadways running across the fort. It is a peninsula encompassed by a huge rampart. Historic sounds should be protected against natural disasters and nuisance such as pollution and vibrations in order to safeguard the heritage and for the security of the well-being of the residents. These are the clauses embodied in the Washington Charter. Whatever the nature of the disaster affecting the historic towns or urban areas, preventive and repair measures must be adopted to the specific character of the properties as depicted in the charter. And these are the very special features of the Washington Charter. Some of them are adhered by the Galle Heritage new regulations. Recognizes the concept of social conservation. That's in the charter. So what we did was recognizing the social aspect of the conservation, and we permitted some of the people to we got the assistance from the people. We had the continuous dialogue with them, and then we allowed them to have their own requirements while fulfilling our guidelines under the conservation regulations. Recognizes the need for changes, both function and design. So we have to recognize as per the guidelines in compliance with the modern day dynamic living, right? That is the requirement, but it is not, the Galle Fort present regulations are quite antithesis. No boundaries are permitted by now, right? So the boundary, I think some of you may aware that the principal of the Southland College was arrested by the UDA for raising the boundary wall because that was her requirement to safeguard the privacy of the girls studying there. But as per the regulations, it is not permitted, but it's a modern requirement of the society. Anyway, now as per the UDA, the school should have leave the fort. Improvement of housing should be one of the basic objective of the conservation in this charter. So what we did was that we recognized the street as the social space during the foregone days, and we tried to preserve houses in enhancing street as social space. Then of course now I will in one of the slides I will show you how the present how that function is being enhanced and encouraged. When it is necessary to construct new buildings or adapt existing ones, the existing spatial layout should be respected. What we have done is the same. We have respected the existing spatial structure, especially in terms of scale and lot sizes, and the introduction of contemporary elements in harmony with the surroundings should not be discouraged as per the guidelines. But anyway, now the introduction of solarium and all kinds of these things are discouraged, even though I self-adhered and did not allow the people to have it. In the regulation it's guided, but I feel that should be given. So this is Galle Fort, of course you all are aware, and then this again Galle Fort. These are some of the studies that we have done. You can see now the 3 years, those are the 3 years. 1983 the survey was done by the Department of Archaeology, and then they published the documentation Ceylon number 13 based on their findings. And then the 2001 was the ICOMOS survey, where the University of Morocco helped service our students. So we helped them collecting the data. And 2007, one was for me, and again we employed the University of our university as well as the Rowan University students. And we now the images shows you the primary residences are on the south. This mosaic shows you the this color. This patch is the primary residential area. Is always concentrated towards the south part of the fort. And then we studied the building elements, and basically the buildings are covered with, majority of the buildings are covered with half round or calicut roofing, but still there are other roofings also. That's why you get a color mosaic. So different colored mosaic is due to the different roofing material. Basically this side you can see more red and brownish color, that is half round tiles and calicut tile roofing. And then the houses belong to various periods. Now say we look at this, we did a cursory examination and attributed some period by their architectural languages, and then that again, as you can see, there's a colored map. That means there were houses of belongs to different period. Basically, houses belongs to the 19th century, the 20th century. Majority of the houses are 20th century. Very few houses are going beyond that period or the latter part of the 18th century. But most of the houses of the 19th century, the 20th century houses carried the face of the facades with olden periods, belongs to the olden periods. That means some people, majority of the people have followed the architectural style prevailed within the Fort of Galle. And then the houses with various architecture, again architecture of the facades architecture is depicted here. Is again a colored mosaic. So that means different period, and then the note is given here. And then vulnerable buildings in the south. So now again we studied the condition of buildings and found that most of the vulnerable buildings, that were the basically houses, were in the southern part of the fort, right? And then the public buildings were attended by the Department of Archaeology, and they have most of the public buildings are conserved except the post office and others. But other buildings, houses, not conserved really, not preserved. They were in the dilapidated, majority of them were in the dilapidated conditions. If the time permits, I will show you a different slide, but not within my presentation. Right, and then these are the general findings. Primary residential sector is the southern sector. Most roofs had half-round calicut tiles. Houses were with various history as depicted by the facades. Houses with various architecture, again by the facades. And then the houses in very vulnerable conditions. And then the houses were very poorly designed for weather and climatic conditions. And there were a lot of illegal constructions we have detected, and majority of the houses were very unsympathetic to the architecture of the street or the cityscapes. And then the irresponsive to streetscapes, so they were non-responsive, and they had very close facades because majority of the occupants were the Muslims. That's why I had very difficult time when we were proposing the schemes, because they were more concerned on their privacy than the social spaces. And then when we studied the plans, we measured about 60 houses within the finances available, and we have realized there's a very generic plan form, and then I recognized it as a what you call hidden order. And then my conservation plan was to complete. Conservation plan was basically considered the bringing out this generic form, generic plan, and conserve the buildings. The hidden spatial order I will explain later on. And then there was a period dynamism, because with the passage of the time, houses have been changed by the people, and none of the houses belongs to a particular period. So there were modifications by different generations, because majority of the houses were received by the present generations from their predecessors, relatives, etc. So the general facade are simply misidentification of the period. So this is the outcome of the University of Moratuwa findings. So complete world city of approximately 40 squares, that is known by everybody, 40 hectares or 90 acres. 40% of the buildings were state-owned buildings. There were 10% open spaces. There's an army cantonment, 2 schools, religious buildings, number of religious buildings, especially Buddhist and Christian, banks and commercial buildings in addition to the houses and public buildings. There are dwelling houses and buildings with mixed uses. Some of the houses are shops, cottage, hotels, boutique hotels, etc. And 80% of the area of historic Galle Fort was housing, land use wise. And this has now been reduced to 35%, because as per the historical record it was about 80%, but now reduced to, at the time when we were doing the survey, it had been reduced to 35%, because most of the houses were converted to various other facilities. Few blocks of vacant land were there because buildings are dilapidated, collapsed and abandoned. There were few sites, and some of these I put up houses for foreigners in some of those vacant lands. The study area has all social, physical and environmental infrastructure facilities. However, there are many issues that need to be rectified. Private residences are the mostly changed buildings in the fort. Public buildings were mostly had their own architectural characteristics. Private houses are modified with inappropriate techniques and architecture pretending post-tsunami reconstruction. Because we did this survey in 2007, and people attributed, they said these were done after tsunami. They said their houses were damaged by the tsunami, and they have done new modifications pretending that they have been damaged. I know that I was one of the person who trapped inside the Galle Fort during the tsunami, and none of the buildings were damaged by the tsunami waves. Most vulnerable for environmental and climatic forces were the houses. And these are the general characteristics of houses that we have came across. You can see all form of, you can see all forms of architecture, right? But when we measured these houses, we measured all the houses, but we handled only the facades, right? And when we prepared the measured drawings, I will show you the measured drawings if you wish after this session. Various kinds of houses. So they have, encompassed, they have covered the facades. But behind this facade, there's a veranda which may be 90 centimeters or 1 meter. Very rarely they are more than 1.5 meters. Right? Very narrow veranda. Even you can't keep a chair and sit on it. But they have encroached it. They have encroached and made these facades. And then this is of course taken from 1983 book of the ancient Ceylon number 13. So these were the street lines which gave us some kind of information for our conservation proposal. We recognize some streets have some common characteristic. In some streets, majority of the buildings were verandas were arcuated verandas. In some streets there were colonnaded verandas. And when we were handling the houses in these areas, we followed the most common feature of that street, either colonnaded veranda, if the street had more colonnaded verandas, new facade was completed with columns in the facade. And if there are arcuated verandas, we completed the new facade with arches, arcades. So these are two more streets, Middle Street and then the Peddler Street. And then the part of the Peddler Street again, two parts of Peddler Streets. So you can see some areas with more arches, but some areas with more columns. Those are when we were doing the conservation, proposing the conservation plan, we were really guided by these existing facades. And yes. So this is one of the two houses. You can see the house, the veranda, like this, and the narrow, very narrow corridor. Even this is only 900 millimeters or so. You can't keep a chair and sit on it, but they have encouraged it to prevent intruders using their verandas. And two more houses, right? And this house, the owner of this house was the person who has facilitated us to do the modification, right? He came forward. Actually, he was a JVP person, and then the chairman was JVP chairman, Ajit Kumar. So Ajit Kumar has convinced him to modify his house, and then after modification of this house, we got the request from the others, because earlier they thought that we are agents of the archaeological department and we are going to get their houses. Oh, right? And this house, we have changed a lot. Now again, you can see these are fairly wide verandas, maybe about 1.5 meters, 3 houses, but still encroach. So these three facades, they had not only the windows, they had sunshades and valance boards, etc. Occasionally they had asbestos roofing. Now this is what we have done. So we were given 2 houses to modify, and then our guidelines, of course, first we adhered to the ridge line. Later on, this came as a guideline to keep the ridge line at 10-meter height from the road level. Right? But what we did was, we adhered to the existing street line, the streetscape, and we changed this one and keep in the, now this is the modified 2 houses. These are 2 houses really, very narrow facade, maybe less than 3 meters in width, but the depth is maybe about 10-meter depth. And then we lowered the roof and got the roof line intact, same. But we could not do anything here because they had very limited space, only 3 meter, the road frontage. And yeah, that's one house. Then this is another house. This is a very interesting story. It will come later on. Say, here also what we did was, now say he had a tall roof, and then the concrete sunshade, and then windows with metal cladding, covered by the metal clads. And then we wanted to introduce arcades. There was no harm. And then we started dismantling this house, and I will show you what we came across later on. And these are the rehabilitated houses. So now we have removed this is the old one, this is the new one. Sorry, this is the old one, this is the new one. So we removed this one because we were able to convince the people to introduce colonnaded arcades, colonnaded verandas. Now this house was like this. We removed the veranda and it ultimately became a house like this. And then this house also had a narrow veranda, and we removed that veranda and introduced columns, and then the columns are part of the streetscape. Sorry. And then these are 2 more houses. Now this house, we changed completely changed. We removed this wall, and then asbestos roofing, and introduced this one. So this house also, the owner wanted to sell it at a very low price, and after this change, he harnessed a very huge price. He might not have expected that amount from a foreigner, right? But anyway, he sold this property, and I made another change. I will show you later on, but within the regulations. And then this was the house. So what we did was we realized the original wall was here. So he demolished this wall. So he opened up the window and then encroached this space, right, to get this facade. And we were able to convince him and then push this wall back to the original position with its original architecture. Now this had arches. So we were able to introduce another arch here and push this wall back to the original position and open up this veranda. So ultimately it came like this, but this area, this was his sole livelihood. He was having a small boutique here, a small stall here. So he did not want to remove it. So we left it for the time being, but we finished this one. But you know, this is in a corner, Peddler Street and Rampart Street corner. And yeah, this is the first house, the man who saved us, so Mr. Sugammana, right? So he had a narrow veranda again, so we were able to convince him and remove this facade wall and introduce a colonnade, and then ultimately house came to this one. We didn't touch this wall, it was intact, so it was the same wall. We did not touch. What we did was only rehabilitation of the veranda part, exposing veranda onto the surrounding area. This was another house, and then the same thing had done, yeah. Okay, he had this encroached veranda, right? So ultimately he agreed to have this veranda with like this, but he wanted to have a protection here. So he bought the cost of the timber balustrade. So we gave him the design, and he made by himself the protected fence with a wicket gate in the center. So not much changes, right? Not much changes. Had a veranda, but he himself agreed for these circular columns, and then this again at his own cost. Another house, almost the same thing had been done. Removed the veranda wall, the frontal wall, and open up. And then the second layer kept untouched. Okay. And now these the same examples, right? So the original house, and then the what you call modified house, and then the modifications are shown here. This pillar to this one. And then one thing had happened when we were when we were touching, we wanted to remove this decorative plaster. When we were removing the plaster, we found that the circular column was buried inside these pillars. So the columns, now these circular columns really were buried underneath this surface plastering. So he had made the original circular pillar a rectangular one with a plaster decorations. So like that, small decorations on the plaster. Right. Another house, very similarly done. My students are working at the site. Right. Ended up with a house in this format. Yeah. Now here again you can see the square pillar, and then the plaster is being removed, and then circular pillar buried inside. Right. So this house, of course, we prepared the plan, and we wanted to expose these pillars and give a kind of a colonnaded veranda, but quite unfortunately, this particular house had only one toilet. The toilet was located here. So we could not remove the toilet. What we did was, we left the toilet as it was, because it was the only toilet they had. Therefore, ultimately we had to complete the house only in this finish. And this is the previous house that I have told you. Some interesting thing would happen. This house, when we began to remove the wall in order to introduce a colonnaded a veranda, we came across this balustrade underneath this wall. They had put up a wall covering the original balustrade, which was a very beautifully carved balustrade. And what we did was, we removed this portion and introduced a similar thing right across the wall. And then this one also had been there. He had put up a lintel and covered this arch. Then we exposed the arch, introduced the same balustrade. Okay. First house. And then the two-story buildings also, we could not do anything here, because there was a veranda, and we did not want to touch it because they were supporting the upper floor. But we were able to convince the owners to remove this wall and introduce simple balustrades, right? A wooden balustrade. Now it coming very close to the streetscape that was possessed by the Galle Fort. And the changes, already you have seen these houses, right? Those are the changes, new, all coming in new phases. Right? Already seen these images, that's why I am rushing through. And now, this house. So this was our conservation part of it. What we did was, we removed the wall here and then pushed it back to the original position and prepared this one. And this site was bought by a German entrepreneur, and he has sold it to a Scandinavian or the Danish architect. And then the Danish architect came to me, and then the German person wanted to have a upper floor on this building, the second floor, right? So this was originally a building like this, and then we converted it to a building like this, and he wanted to have a upper floor here. Then I prepared the upper floor plan, and then this area also was removed, and we changed these doors into another openings, and now the house became completely a new one, but only part is remaining like this. Veranda remains, and then the upper floor was constructed above this one, but retained the height at 10 meters. And what he did was, what the owner, the new owner, the Danish architect, wanted to have a maisonette. The upper floor was completely devoid of construction, no walls, and he wanted to have his sleeping deck as a maisonette, because through this window and through all these windows, he could capture the view of Crossenberg across the port harbour, the Galle port, across the Galle port. Now you can see the glimpses of the Galle port. Across it, he could capture the view of Crossenberg on the other side. So, and then facing now this is Rampart Street. This is the Dutch Union. No, Dutch Hospital building, now a shopping arcade. And then we place this plaque in all houses, indicating that we did it with the Netherlands grant. And then this is how the verandas are now being used. Most of the houses are now converted to guest houses, and they are using the verandas for dining purposes. And then I just wanted to use this veranda as social spaces of the people, but they have modified, they have converted them to guest house. Now the tourists are using that verandas as social spaces because they can converse with the people who are walking along the street. So that's it. Then we are going for the other part, the second part, conservation of dungeons. So that we strictly adhere to the Vanish Charter, and then even the material were tested at the Conservation Laboratory of the University of Moratuwa, and similar materials were used in conservation works. So when we were given the opportunity to measure 4 bastions, 4 dungeons. Under the bastions, Aeolus, Triton, Star and Moon. And then the Moon Bastion dungeon, the Galle Heritage Foundation wanted to establish their heritage museum. So we conserved it, and now it is being used as the Heritage Museum of Galle Fort. So this was the Aeolus bastion. Bastion wall was completely sealed off, and then they have not kept any record about when it was closed and who closed it, right? And architect Ashley was said he can remember them were open when he was a small kid. So that may be at least 70 years before present. But anyway, quite unfortunately, deviating from the ordinary conservation regulations, historic regulations, they have not kept a record on what they have done, who had to close it, whether it is archaeology department or some other organization. Then I thought that they might have been closed by after 1971 insurgency, because very close to them was the government agent, not the government agent. Even the district secretariat was within Galle Fort until it was being newly constructed very recently. So probably the government might have closed it, and it was completely blocked, and no one knew what was inside. And we were given the permission to break open the doors and measured the dungeons and drew the plans. So this is the doorway that you have seen earlier. It was lead to a small veranda and 2 chambers with single doorway without any other openings. And then these two, this was covered by 2 walls. So there were 2 barrel vaulted roof over this space, and then there's another. This veranda also was covered by a single barrel vault. So this is a 1 barrel vault, and then there were 2 barrel vault. How they have been joined is unknown, because we could not do anything above this level. So what we measured, we took the internal measurements and prepared these plans. So we could not conserve it. We simply did this part, and the Galle Heritage Foundation did not have sufficient money to conserve and protected the building. And then the second one that we measured was Star Bastion. The Star Bastion also was closed, and no access was provided for anybody. Then we broke open and entered into the dungeon and prepared the measured drawing, and now it is at that stage. So this is the measured drawing. So there's a series of chambers, on a symmetrical axis, covered with barrel vaulted roof here, and then there's another big space with a big barrel vault here, and then there's a single small barrel vault with a single opening open towards a courtyard open to the sky. So that is the general architecture of the Now this area is completely open to the sky. So if you get on to this one, you can see the hall or the courtyard open to the sky, and it had been, now say, there is a small narrow dungeon, small vaulted roof, vaulted simple hall-like thing, a tube-like thing to ventilate this area, and other areas are ventilated by another small window here, and then the single door on this side. Right? This also we measured and documented, but nothing could be done thereafter. And then the third one, what we think was a mistake by us, because we prepared all the construction plan and handed over to the Galle Heritage Foundation. Then Galle Heritage Foundation wanted to conserve this building with public-private partnership. They got hold of a businessman and entered into an agreement, and then we were unaware of the conditions, but we guided, during the conservation, we guided the conservation works and completed it according to our plan, but as per the agreement between the owner, the developer, and then the Galle Heritage Foundation, he has put up a small boutique here. Now it is like a peta market, right? Hanging various women's garments and all, right? So now you can't see inside the what you call this dungeon. That was not an expectation from us, and originally it was something like that. There were 3 doors. 3 doors were closed and closed with brick wall, and we forcefully, break open it with the permission of the Department of Archaeology and then the Central Cultural Fund, the Galle Heritage Foundation, and they also were covered with similar architecture everywhere. So the 3 chambers, now say there are, now this is the interior plan. So there were 3 chambers, and then the 4th chamber on this side. So there were 3 doors. One door give access to another space covered with a barrel vault like this, and sharing the access to 2 different chambers with barrel vaulted again. And then this one is a single room, under barrel vault, similar to this one, and this is a barrel vault with the axis in this direction. And then the third one without any veranda, that's a single chamber. So we designed this, we completed the interior works, conserved it with the funding from the businessman, and we put up a roof in order to protect. Now this is our roof area. It could be easily dismantlable. It could be easily removed as per the guidelines of the conservation, the principles of conservation, without harming the monument, because there had been a set of cobble stones. We suspended a timber pole across the. Now they have a cobble stone, suspended a pole plate, and then constructed the roof and supported on timber pillars without fixing onto the ground, right? And so we conserved it according to our conservation plan, but the operation is completely unexpected. Third one, which we paid more attention and conserved, was the moon bastion, the one which is close to the clock tower. It was covered, the entrance was covered like this, and then there was a single window. Window 2 was covered in this manner, and we removed them and get access to the interior. This was the window the window photograph taken from the interior. This is from the outside after removing the window. Now these people are removing the window. This is the plan of the moon's bastion. This was the door. This is the door, and then enter into a small chamber, and then there's another chamber with a concentric axis, and all these are barrel vaulted roofs, and this again a barrel vaulted roof, and this particular wall had a huge crack, both inside and outside. And I think that crack had been developing for a long period of time, and somebody had put up two buttress here, two buttress walls to mitigate, to arrest the crack at the ridge of the barrel vault. But still it was continuing. And then our main target was to first arrest the developing crack and then do the conservation work. So we did it. So this is a section of the building, a barrel vault, and then this is the access barrel vault. And after completing this one, since they wanted to have a heritage museum, we introduced a roof similar to the roof that we have introduced into the Triton bastion. This is the existing condition of the interior. So explorations, damages, right? So this what you call deposit, maybe the deposit was about 500 millimeters, huge deposit. We was a deposit from the field of plasters, ceiling plastering and all, and then the decayed floor. We removed them and started our work. So this was the interior. So without anybody, and then there were cracks. And we used a very, very simple shuttering system, struts, in order to, until the buttresses are being constructed, we added two buttresses, first to what you call arrest the developing crack. We used the similar kind of two additional buttresses. Originally there were two. We added two more on this side to arrest the buttress, and then after that we started the conservation, the interior conservation. This is how the buttresses were being done. The existing buttresses were cleaned. There were vegetation, so they were cleaned, and these new buttresses were constructed. This after constructing. And now, having seen the surface cracks, we wanted to excavate and see what had happened to the ridge of the barrel vault. And then we got the help of the Department of Archaeology and Galle University. They were supervising while we were doing actually they deployed, the Department University undergraduates were deployed to do the supervision of excavation work, and excavation work were carried out by the people who were outsourced, and systematically excavated above the barrel vaulted roof, and then after clearing it and after repairing the crack, we had laid cementitious waterproofing, and then various other precautions were taken and backfilled and completed that area. And then there were other surface cracks. So we first removed there were not only the surface cracks, they were later filled by somebody with lime mortar. Then we removed those lime mortar, cleaned and vacuum cleaned these crevices. You can see very huge, very wide crevices. Even this man has put his foot into the crevice and cleaned and then filled with cementitious grout. This vacuum cleaning the crevices and filled with cementitious grout, and then completed it. And then the inside again we used injectors and pressure pumped the grout into the cracks. These were small cracks, but the major crack was on the ridge of the barrel vault. See, and then the inside was plastered, and then the plaster were tested at the university, and then similar plasters were similar constituents were used and re-render the interiors because they wanted to introduce, they wanted to establish their heritage museum inside. These are the conservation works carried out, plaster, this is not a conservation, this is re-plastering the interiors. Right? This is a procedure, we used waterproofing, and then the conservation also was systematically carried out. And then after finish, we laid terracotta tile to the interior, and surprisingly, they wanted to air condition the space. They have given the consultancy without consulting us to CEB, right? So the Central Engineering Consultancy Bureau, CCB, or CECB, Central Engineering Consultancy Bureau. So they had introduced, they wanted what you call introduce various ducting and all to what you call air condition the spaces of the Heritage Museum. Then I opposed the decision, and I didn't go there thereafter. I don't know whether how they have air conditioned the space. Then I proposed them to have installed simple air conditioning system with the pipes buried underground without exposing to the without damaging the walls and all. So then ultimately we had to introduce a roof. The roof also there were I don't know whether I will be able to show you, but there were two cobblestones. Yeah, like that there were two cobblestones. We suspended a pole plate between the two cobblestones and constructed a roof with simply supported timber pillars, which could be removed at any time without harming the monument. This is how the roof was being constructed. We used half round tile and timber pillars with the decorations from the Galle Fort to match with the existing conditions. And this is how it has been constructed. Right? Very simply, what you have to do is you remove this the pedestal stone and prop this one and remove the pillars, and then remove this pole plate from the bell stones. So that's it, the presentation. I don't know whether it's, yeah, okay. So if there are any questions, you can raise the questions.
Thank you, Professor Manoru.
Yeah.
Thank you, Professor Manoru. And this is question time. Anybody can ask.
Yeah. It's like a balcony. You have sun bath.
Thank you very much for that excellent presentation. I have a personal link with the Galle Fort because a very close relative of mine lives in one of those ancient houses on Church Street, and actually she was also on the Heritage Trust Committee. Now, you, in terms of preservation, you were talking about the preservation of the social environment of the place. Yeah. So obviously now this was a Dutch fortress in which people lived. Now, as I can see, most of the buildings have been converted either into restaurants or hotels, and it's full of tourists. So in terms of the preservation of the social character, it has changed completely because now it's simply a tourist location. So what would you say about that?
Yeah, actually, that should have been the part of the government policy because now that's a question because now the people wanted to earn their income from these properties, and then the we want to what you call restrict the use of properties other than houses. No? The main function was to use them as houses. And Galle Fort, until 1873, it was only an administrative center of the Britishers. And after the functions of the Galle Port, harbour functions were removed to the Colombo, gradually passed on to the hands of the ordinary people, very especially those who were engaged with the trade. A majority of them were Muslims, so most of the houses were transferred to the hands of the Muslims. So that's why they have covered their facades and built the houses. But still they followed the original plans. That's why I said there was a hidden order. And our intention was to expose this, brought to light the hidden order and generate a socially functioning streetscape. Means we thought that the street was the social space, and then the people on the both sides of the road could converse themselves with the passerbyers. And then that is our main intention. But quite unfortunately, that became a trend, and now they are referred to as the Dutch houses. I don't think that they are Dutch houses. They are not Dutch houses, but they have followed the principles of Dutch means the principles of Dutch houses brought from Indonesia, not from Netherlands or not from Spain or somewhere. And now the government has to do some kind of restrictions. I think there are some restrictions because now houses cannot be fully converted into guest houses. They have to live in it, and only part can be converted. So that should be one of the guidelines under the Galle Heritage Foundation, not the Galle Heritage Foundation, maybe UDA, because they are the people who are controlling the development of the city.
The bathrooms in the private houses,
Yeah.
were they pits or were they connected with the sewerage line?
There are no sewerage, so they all are using septic tanks. There was a drainage line, but illegally connected, but not officially permitted, because the Galle Fort was completely dependent on the scavenger removing the bucket system. No, that had been the system until very recent time, maybe 1970s, 80s. Also, there were houses with bucket type of toilets, scavengers carrying, and there were alleyways for that purpose. Now the alleyways are now occupied by the people, and then they have now the new residents. They have put up their own septic tanks within the properties.
I was there also during the tsunami,
Yeah.
and I remember one of the residents telling that for years they had been battling with the municipal council to clear up the drains.
Yeah.
And after the tsunami, it cleared up all the drains and they were functioning.
Yeah. No, I was trapped inside the Galle Fort during the tsunami because I was with 4 of the Japanese professors just in front of Sudharma Alaya. When the water coming along the road, I told them that very randomly the high tide coming through this ancient drainage system, and water might have came out from somewhere, and we walked around after the first wave and got trapped in the second wave. We just ran up to the top of the rampart and watched and saw what was happening to the Galle Fort. The collapsing of the bus stand, the turn in buses, the waves were seen from top of the rampart very close to the esplanade.
Foreigners owning.
Foreigners, I designed few houses for foreigners. I think they are most of the houses are not owned by them. They are what you call the companies registered with BOI. 1% share is sold by the Sri Lankans. And because I came across one litigation issue, a house was property was given for me to develop, And then I found that the owner was in England, and then suddenly it was occupied by the 1% owner, occupied and expelled the real owner out of the country. And then there had been litigation, I don't know what had happened.
Foreigners
Cannot own, but they made what's called the BOI companies, and there are Sri Lankans holding 1% or 2. And then very recently also, now last month, I again redesigned a house that was, I designed in 2014 that house for a foreigner, actually the owner of the port printers. And then there were some old walls. I retained the old walls and prepared the new plan for a 2-story building. And it was approved by the Galle Heritage Foundation. And during the construction, he has pulled down all the walls and then suspended by the Archaeology Department. And there was a court case. It was resolved only a few months back. And then the property was returned to the owner. And then the owner was a Navy doctor, and he wanted to reconstruct the house based on my previous plan. I got the approval and started construction last month.
Excellent presentation, Professor Manavadu. Thank you. 2 questions. One is, I thought there was we all thought there was a underground sewer system. I lived in the Galle Fort for about 5 years, the start of my career. So that's in the number 50 Pedler Street building of Charles P. Haley. I saw a picture of that.
Yeah.
And what I thought was that there was an underground sewer system. Is that functioning?
Yeah, actually underground
You were talking
system,
septic tanks.
That was one of my projects in Galle Fort, because when the Netherlands Cultural Grant was given, they have assigned me to do the restoration work of the underground drainage system. We have restored, we have opened it up, and we found that there are, the underground drain is about, maybe about 1.5 meter wide, and maybe about 1 meter, 1.5 meter again tall, barrel vaulted construction, and partially damaged. We restored it, and we put it into operation as far back as 2012, but I don't know now whether it's functioning or not, because at that time, of course, some people had connected their sewers into this underground drainage system. We restored it.
And it drains out into the sea.
Yeah, that's the drain out of the sea, but during the high tides, it's flowing back.
It flushes it out.
Yeah.
So that was working. I lived there about 50 years ago.
It was made to work along 2 streets. I can't remember with it may be Pedler Street and another street. We made it to work, but I don't know now. It's 10 years or 12 years after.
The other question was about the funding from the Netherlands government. Was the funding given to the construction itself?
No. It was given to the Cultural Ministry, and then from Cultural Ministry to the Netherlands Central Cultural Fund, through the Central Cultural Fund to the Galle Heritage Foundation, and Galle Heritage Foundation brought a cost up to 1 million for each house.
Right. But the owner paid for the development.
If the owners wanted to have new houses, or new development, additional development than we proposed, they could get they could spend and get it done.
Right. Thank you very much.
Professor, this is regarding the gunpowder magazines and the gun emplacements, example, Triton Bastion, Alos Bastion. So with Dr. Nilan Kore, we did a research and we got the blueprints from England. So what is very unique in Galle Fort is all of those gun bastions are almost in original condition.
Yeah.
So, and also those gun bastions, I believe, I don't think you can find them either in Singapore or any other country in Asia which is in original condition, because when we were, especially Alos and Triton bastions, underground, the water lines, everything was in working condition when we restored it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, at this moment, if I keep my silence, it would not help. I think I should, bring into the notice of the audience that the World Heritage Committee requested the Sri Lankan government to prepare a management plan to the World Heritage Site of Galle. And it was prepared in, if I remember correctly, in 2009. I'm not mentioning the name. And then it was submitted, it was completely rejected. Then all of a sudden, the National Heritage Ministry in 2014 requested me to prepare the management plan. I first refused, actually. I said I can't, because I am fully pressed with the work in the university, but they continued pressing me, but ultimately I didn't have any option. So within a period of 1 month or 1.5 months, I had to prepare the management plan, which was accepted by the World Heritage Committee and requested to implement it. Then after that, we had several discussions with the ministry to implement it, and we drew the time frame, but unfortunately the ministry was changed and it was stopped. Then all of a sudden again, I think 2017, the External Resources Department of the Treasury, with the participation of the Paskalingam, again requested me to prepare a tourism development plan. That was also I first rejected, but ultimately pressed and prepared the tourism development plan, and it was also accepted by the World Heritage Committee, but unfortunately it was also not implemented. They continuously requested the implementation plan of the tourism development plan as well as the management plan, and last year, when Dr. Nilan Kure went to the World Heritage Committee, I think still I think it's a wrong move, because they didn't have any question about the prepared management plan and the tourism development plan. They were requesting the progress, but unfortunately, anyway, maybe unfortunately or maybe for good, they said that we will amalgamate these two and prepare a new management plan. And then Dr. Nilan Kure again requested me to prepare it. I said I can't. I'm pressed, although I'm retired, I'm pressed with other work. But ultimately they call the normal consultancy, the procurement system, and they wanted me to quote for it, and on the 31st of April of last year it was closed. Only in the morning, since there were no one was interested, I was pressed again to quote, and I was given the task. And from last July, I had several workshops with brainstorming sessions with various people, and we had a lot of discussions, and the problems that the resident, I had a workshop with the residents, business community, small business holders, foreigners, then the three-wheeler drivers, and the persons who were jumping, and the photographers, and the all the government officers, and then finally the secretaries to the ministries and DG, UD and everything. And gathered, I have all those things, and there were several questions. And one of the things that you asked, that they said that this particular sewerage system when a part was collapsed, municipality has come and they removed it and put a concrete on top of it. That's what they have done. So, and the people were telling various things. The traffic plan is a mess there, and the people of the residents are complaining that they are not allowed to park, and the parking has been rented, and they had to pay. And some people who are going to Colombo used to come and park the cars inside and take the train and go, and so lot of parking problems and lot of problems. So ultimately I had to prepare this management plan, and was submitted. At the moment it is in the first or second draft. And then we called all the people there again and submitted the draft plan and had a good workshop. And you know that the regulations that has been prepared when Professor Manawad was doing, has been now changed. And the people were complaining that although you said that, showed that in this convention, that before doing anything, the residents has to be consulted. They were complaining that there was a workshop and only few the identified people were consulted in the amending the regulations, and now it is gazetted, and they are opposing it to that also now. So there are so many problems, and I have prepared the draft, and now I have sent it to various the others, and now I am amending it. Hopefully within next 2 weeks I will prepare the final draft. But Sarah, there are at the moment loads of problems there in the Galle Fort. I don't know what will happen. Anyway, I have amalgamated 2 plans, and new action plan has been already drawn now. There are few things has to be straightened and has to be submitted to the UNESCO. And they have not given a time frame. They have said once because they always think that the plan already there has to be implemented, and that's acceptable for them. Now they are asking, at the last World Heritage Committee meeting, the recommendation was, the state party has said that there will be a new management plan incorporating the old one and the tourism development plan, and they have requested the state party to submit it when it is ready. They have not given the time frame also. So I don't know what is going to happen, because there are so many problems because of the influx of the tourists, and even they were complaining. The residents were complaining during the weekend of the last Christmas weekend. They couldn't get out their houses and cross the street to the other side. It was fully packed with the visitors. And some weekends and long weekends, they can't walk on the ramparts, like when you are climbing the Sigiriya. You have a huge queue. Likewise, it's very packed. And as Professor Manawad said, the 80% of the houses has been reduced to 35% at the moment. Nobody knows how much of it has come down at the moment. And a lot of residents has been converted to boutique hotels, and sometimes they have promoted the homestay idea also. One of the rooms is now rented while the residents are they staying. They have been rented now for the foreigners. And apart from that, a lot of the unauthorized buildings are unauthorized conservation are happening. They are normally they starts at the evening of the Friday and complete it on the morning dawn of the Monday, while the 2 officers of the UDA and the Department of Archaeology are closed. So that's what is happening at the Galle at the moment, and a lot of problems. And at the moment I have identified I think about 8 issues, and each issue contains about maybe 5 or 6, and I think I have identified about 19 or 20 problems there. which may have to solve if you are going to safeguard the goal and to be continued as a World Heritage Site. So that is the situation. I think I was listening and these problems are there, starting from the social problems and the conservation problems, and because now the problem of building materials has gone up, the residents are finding it very difficult, because normally we think that it's more than 50% is spend has to be spent, more than 50% of the normal building cost for conservation also, and then they are finding it's very, very difficult to find the building materials and the skilled labor, and all those problems are there at the moment. So I just wanted to tell you what has happened when I started this the investigation and writing this report, starting from last I think July, and now still I am doing it. So this is the situation with gold. I don't know what will happen in future. Thank you very much.
Right. There's another.
Thank you, first of all, for a very good presentation and also quite a rich discussion that takes place here. As someone who has visited the Galle Fort for the last 25, 30 years on a regular basis, I've seen a lot of progress in many ways, but at the same time also a lot of unfortunate developments. And I wonder whether one can somehow clarify whether the main challenges are rather in the field of planning and regulation, or rather in the field of implementation of what has been agreed upon, or whether it's even in the field of law enforcement. I mean, to me, if I look at the last couple of years, I see some private buildings there totally dilapidated, and I wonder whether there are no regulations in a World Heritage Site to make it compulsory for owners to either improve their buildings or rescue their buildings or give up their buildings in order to make sure that they can contribute to the wider perspective of the World Heritage Site. To me, it seems as if there's enormous speculation taking place, and I don't care whether it's foreigners or Sri Lankans, but the fact is that some people seem to sit on land or on buildings, intentionally allowing them to fall apart in order to get a higher price when they have more freedom to build newly. So, key question again, is it rather a challenge of regulation and planning, or rather a problem of implementation, maybe due to lack of funding or due to human resources or whatnot? Or is it eventually even law enforcement, where one would wish that some who are entitled to would enforce what has been agreed upon?
Shall I answer this question? Well, I think I may be best person to ask, because I was the Director General of Archaeology also. That is the major problem with the Antiquities Ordinance. The Antiquities Ordinance gives to prosecute the people who that does these type of things, but there are no regulation in the Antiquities Ordinance to rectify them. Only prosecution. They will be fined, and finally no reverting it back. It's the UDA that can do it, but over the last few years they have not taken any action. The legal actions that has been taken against the people who has done irregular modification and things like that also has been questioned, not questions actually, with the interference of the politicians. The legal action also has been withdrawn sometimes. And one good case is the surgeon, I am not going to tell the name of the surgeon, who has done a completely wrong renovation and trying to go everywhere to get it rectified, and there had been a court case. And even when I was called as the Director General to meet the Attorney General, the State Councillor was supporting that doctor to rectify, put a stamp by the Department of Archaeology, what he has done is correct. I said, no, I am not going to do it. And then finally he took me to the Attorney General himself. And then the Attorney General, who was the later the Chief Justice who retired recently, and after he listening to my case, he said, no, that's Director General of Archaeology is correct. You should not support the doctor, but still the case is there. So that's the political interference that was happening in Galle, and unfortunately there are no regulations to rectify the damages that the owners are doing. So that's why they start in the afternoon of the Friday and complete it in the dawn of the Monday, because they will be fined, and that's it. So when I was the DG, I prepared a complete, I studied it, and we prepared a complete revision of the Antiquities Ordinance incorporating these regulations, and I was requesting actually what we have done is to have a separate section in the Antiquities Ordinance to handle the World Heritage Sites of Sri Lanka. Because what will happen if that World Heritage Site is scrapped, it will be an entire problem to the country. So all those things were identified. We had a lot of workshops and finalized and cabinet approved. And it was in the legal draftman's department. Unfortunately, government got changed and it was stopped, and that's it. So after the government, they stopped it, still those identified new regulations has been, set aside, and no revisions were done. So that's the thing. So at the moment, the major setback in the Antiquities Ordinance is that Department of Archaeology does not have any authority under the law to impose any rectifications. As you said, the regulations has to be changed and impose these. So that's the situation on the, so implementation of the regulations through the Department of Archaeology will not help. Only the UDA has certain regulations. They are the only people who can, go to courts and get it rectified, but it is also prevented due to the political interference. I know that about 22 court cases has been, first filed by the UDA, but according to the people, they have said that because of the interference, 20 has been withdrawn, only 2 are there, but still pending. That's happening in the Galle. These are the facts that I have to tell everyone. These are the things happening in Galle. Government had decided, what I saw recently, the government has decided to close down the Galle Heritage Foundation. That is the decision that they have taken. They are going to close down various government offices, and the first one in the line is the closing down the Galle Heritage Foundation. But unfortunately, then I don't know what I'm going to do, because according to the present management plan and the former management plan also, I have identified, and UNESCO also has identified that the Galle Heritage Foundation has to be further strengthened with manpower, regulation, and various, the financial resources also. I had identified various areas that it could be strengthened, but I don't know with the new decision what is going to happen. And the other thing is, that I have identified during the workshops for the last 6 months I had, there is a huge tug-of-war between the UDA, municipality, Galle Heritage Foundation and the Department of Archaeology in Galle. Because of that, nothing is happening. And with the workshop I had with all the officers, I requested them to do a SWOT analysis, and the officers also who came has identified this problem of not having any consensus among the government of officers who are handling the Galle Fort. And recently I know that even the director Galle province by UDA wanted to give permission for the people to do anything. So the Department of Archaeology contacted me, and then I had to advise them, although I am not in there. Then after that, they discussed it, and finally he managed to be controlled. Otherwise, he wanted to give approval for all the plans that the people are doing. And sometimes you see that Professor Manavadu who is telling that you can't have a swimming pool, and some of the people has even constructed a swimming pool at the first floor of the hotels or the houses also, and got approved. That's what is happening.
Okay, thank you. Actually, if we really look at what is happening today, is government is trying to make get 2 million tourists to 3 million tourists, right? And people are coming here for the heritage and the environment, right? Gradually, it is getting to climb up Sigiriya. Some people have to wait 2.5 in the queue. If everybody takes one sand grain from crystalline limestone footsteps, say in 10 years' time, there will be nothing. It's not the increasing, trying to see that, number of tourists are coming. There are a lot of things has to be done, especially proper management has to be carried out, whatever the, thing. And not only that, now they are searching for some more places where people have not gone earlier. That is end of heritage in this country. It is very unfortunate because, National Trust is very much interested in seeing that, heritage is protected in whatever the form. But the policies, if the people have not, the top people have not understood the actual after effects, what they are doing, it will be disastrous to the country. It's not the money, it's not, we need tourism. Tourism adds a lot to the national income, but money is not the only thing that has to be looked at. So therefore, we are in a very bad situation, really. Right? That's the time. Okay. Now, we thank Professor Manavadu for giving a wonderful lecture and explaining all what has happened. And we have a small